Yes. So now we'll finally start with the main program, that is our interview. So the first question, now to begin with, sir, can you please tell us from which place do you come from? And I'm sorry, where did you study for your graduation, post graduation? That is, can you tell us something more about your professional life?
Well, I was born in Chennai, 1959, and went from Chennai to Calcutta when I was 2 months old, and that kind of set the trend, I think, for the rest of my life. I was moving about quite a lot. Delhi, Bangalore, Bombay, sometime even in Japan, a small stint. So quite a lot of places I've moved around in. And my academic qualification, first degree in engineering was from Bangalore, BMS College of Engineering. Post graduation, I did in Dayton, Ohio, a school called Wright State University, Wright as in the Wright brothers, and where as regards my profession, I primarily was a business process mapping expert. Now I switched to content development, content for websites, content for flyers, literature, what have you, storyboards and things like that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Moving to the next question, I would like to, at what age do you think that your symptoms started? What were your symptoms and what difficulties did you face?
Well, it was detected when I was 19, but I think it started a couple of months earlier. A lot of the symptoms go unnoticed because people around just think he's a little unwell. That's it. There's nothing really wrong with him. He'll bounce back and things like that. So the symptoms were noticed, became florid with an event. It was a motorcycle accident. I had this motorcycle accident and then I went silent for almost 72 hours. That's when they said, hey, there's something wrong with this guy. But yeah, so that was the defining episode. What were my symptoms? Well, the usual, if grandiosity, for example, feeling that I own everything around, everything is for me. It's called psychotic grandiosity. That was one symptom. The other thing was hearing voices and believing that the newspaper was delivering secret messages. And well, it was odd, though, to say the least. Any other question?
Yes, sir.
Ganesh ji, Ramana here.
Yes, Ramana.
I want to ask you a technical question.
Mm-hmm.
Did your schizophrenia, do you feel that your schizophrenia made you get a pass mark or good grade anywhere in BTech or a BA or social economic, applied economics?
See, this is it. This is it. You see, when you're reading with under the condition, for me at least, I kept reading the same line over and over again. I couldn't proceed because each sentence seemed to have multiple meanings. So it was very difficult for me to study. I took the medication, and after that, I was able to do basic reading and studying. My advice to any student would be to basically, seek help where possible, whether other students, tuitions, anything. And let them remember that it is not a weakness to reach out for help. It's a strength. And this is what I would advise all students.
No. What I'm trying to ask you is, do you feel that schizophrenia denied you the higher score which you could have got had you not got schizophrenia?
I don't, that's not a question that I need to visit at all because schizophrenia is something which has happened. I don't focus on the setback of the disease. I accept the challenge of cure. I think at this point, that's all I can say. It is something which happened, and I had to accept and move on from it.
That is, you accepted schizophrenia.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you very much. May I request our students to continue? And may I also request the audience that some time has been allocated at the end of this interview in which audience can certainly ask the questions. So please write down your questions, or you can put it also on the chat box, or you can ask directly also. So Tanvi, please continue.
Yes, Shloka, up to you
Okay.
now.
Yes, Tanvi. So, sir, who noticed your first symptoms and how did they respond to your symptoms?
Could you repeat that?
Who noticed the symptoms first and how did they respond to your symptoms?
Going silent for less than 72 hours is not something which can be ignored. So I think everybody in the family noticed it. But the good thing is they waited for me to come back. I think I was basically horizontal in bed, never moving except to relieve myself every once in a way, and not talking at all despite attempts to make me speak. So the family was concerned, and they noticed it first. And when they did a sort of a retrospective on after that, it came to light that there were a lot of things which I was doing differently in the past couple of weeks or the past 4 to 6 weeks. This includes things like, making statements out of context, for example. So, but it was not clearly defined until the time I started or refused to speak, until I didn't speak at all. So that's when family noticed it.
Right.
Okay, so as you said, you accepted your schizophrenia, but what was your primary reaction when did you notice it first, and what was it?
You see, when I had the setback, I definitely felt why me? Why was I singled out to have this issue? Why is reality so unfair? I mean, why couldn't I be like anybody else? And my first reaction was to feel a little cheated by life. But over time, very soon, of course, I understood that, okay, as I said, leave the setback and accept the challenge of curing yourself. And that made all the difference. And I think the biggest decision was to change my perspective from being a victim to being a survivor. I think that helped a lot.
Good.
Okay. So, who took you to the professionals and like how did it help you to manage your schizophrenia?
See, at that time, the number of antipsychotics available were very few. I mean, you would count them on your fingers, two or three perhaps, and very different from what it is now. We have quite a widespread spectrum of pharmacological treatments. But at that point in time, there were very few. So I think the tendency to approach non-conventional method was very high because of this, the still developing nature of the science. So it was noticed, and I was taken to psychiatrists after the 72 hours, and I opened up. And one of the thing is, I mean, it was a very disarming question. Thing like, I am with you. Just a simple question, like a simple statement like that, made me open up. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, sure.
I have Kishore and Leena. We'll talk again, surely.
Yes, sir. As you said, you were a student at time when you
Mhm.
were suffering from conditions. What struggled, what hurdles did you face when you were suffering from the conditions? Did you experience any setback or loss because of that?
3 years. 3 years just flew out of the window without anything to claim, without anything to boast, without anything to celebrate. That was definitely a setback, a loss. But then I look at it as 3 years of learning packed into a life of 19 years and not. So it was an accelerated learning. The accelerated learning which I acquired was social nuances like body language, tone of voice. I was essentially an introvert for quite a long time, and so when I looked at it and said, "Yes, I must go on." It's something which I took a decision that it should be done. And despite the loss, I think I was able. In fact, the when I received my intimation of my getting the degree, and that too in first class, I must say that I was asleep, and when I opened the mail and I saw that I had done, I crossed over, and I felt a sense of accomplishment like nothing before. And I think the essence of it is, which I can say, is set goals and take, as Anilji says, take it in part acts. Don't try look at it, break it down into chunks, and then finish what you have to do. Seek help. That's also a very important thing. So, having said all that, I think I learned. So the loss is offset by the learning.
Mhm.
Okay, so moving on, um, what what support did you get from the people around you during this entire journey? How would you describe it?
See, initially, I was quite hostile. So, I mean, putting up with that hostility itself is something which one should appreciate. And over time, yes, it is, and definitely love, acceptance. I was not judged. I was not ridiculed for the odd things and statement I did when it was there. So that's a good thing. I mean, acceptance and non-judgmental approach is a good thing. So yes, it was my family first and my extended family too, and who helped a lot in, letting me be and become what I wanted to be. I think that family, for it's not easy. Some families find it very difficult because how to cope. I mean, admitting in institutions, stigmatized; taking medicine, stigmatized; uh, mixing in non-conventional gatherings, stigmatized. And I think that was the issue then. And I think we have a big opportunity in this information age to change that and come out of the stifled thinking of the past. I digress, but I thought I should say this. So
Sir, do you think that in providing proper environment, is family important or society is important? Means
in general, sir, the environment is important. See, there is a new science called epigenetics, which is a new kid on the block. I mean, we have a tendency to blame genes for anything we cannot explain. I think that's not fair. Uh, Genes are not everything, and the epigenetics talks about it. So, we have mapped the entire human genome, and there are inconsistent results in assigning a particular this condition to a particular genome or a particular stretch of RNA DNA. But epigenetics, on the other hand, is saying something that soft science has been saying all along. In hard science, we have a statement that the environment can impact the person at a cellular level. You read it. I mean, you heard it. You heard it, right? Environment can impact at a cellular level, which means that even if you have a predisposition, it needs something in the environment to also trigger it. Does that help, sir?
Right. Then we move ahead. Huh?
Yes, sir. Apart from your family, your extended family and your friend circle, did you face social stigma about the condition, and what was your experience about the social stigma?
See, at the outset, I never used to be taken to gatherings, social gatherings, because there was always a fear that I might say or do the wrong thing. So it was only when with close family that they let me interact, and the tendency to stigmatize was not that much there. The thing is, stigma hits you on your self-esteem. I mean, you're being judged, you're being ridiculed, you're being made fun of. Uh, so that stigma, when it hits your self-esteem, it takes a big hit. And I think that you have to manage your own self-esteem. One term I came across is that if your happiness depends on somebody else, you have a problem. In this, so I mean, the minute I hand over the reins for my happiness to somebody else, there'll be a whole lot of problems, whole lot of issues. And how to generate that internally self-esteem engine, so to speak, internally, is to understand that if you do not accept what they're giving, it is not yours. That goes for profanity also. If people say, you say something and they say bullshit and you don't accept it, it's part of life. So so I think in speaking in general, uh, stigma will not affect you unless you allow it to. And over time and over and even of course reading therapy, it's something which one can come out of. So I think you can rebuild your self-esteem at any point in time, and forget the past and look ahead. I mean, I know there's another thing I learned from it, is that fate is what you meet and destiny is how you meet it. So if part of your fate is stigma, how you meet that stigma becomes very important. Does it help?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So moving ahead, what inspired you to write the books? Like, what motivated you to have introspection about your past life?
See, initially, I must admit, I needed some validation. I don't know if my thinking was right or wrong. I didn't know. And initially, I wrote just to say validation. But over time, that sense went over to a desire to get the message across to as many people as possible. So that's the essence of the second book, is to make it as easy as possible to read and assimilate ideas. And I can tell you without any hesitation that the first book, the non-fiction book, it takes a little reading to get through. And if you've got a hold of it, I would say straight go. And you need help, I would suggest you go straight to the appendix and read the appendix, which has some tools. So yes, so these were the primary reasons for my writing.
Okay, sir. Did you think that your illness has the purpose in life? What were your learnings from the conditions? Do you learn something suffering from the conditions after suffering from the conditions?
I mean, there are three sort of key things I learned. I think again, the first one is accept your fate and basically what happens to you. What happens to you is fate, and how you handle it is your destiny. Which means you cannot control your fate, but you can create your destiny. You can work towards your destiny with whatever you have. There's more information in the books. The second thing is that you are unique. Just accept that you are unique. You are a collection of atoms that never was, that never will be again, and you are so unique. And when I say that, it comes with the realization that others are unique too. And that's another a second key learning which I had. And the last is if you wait long enough and look hard enough, there is a silver lining in everything. I mean, it may not be evident to you today, but maybe 10 years from now, it says, aha, this is why I had this is why it happened. So those three things I would say are key learnings which have come out of schizophrenia. But I would also say one other thing is that, you know, as a teacher, as over time, the social, I think I've said this before, the social nuances I've learned, the body language, how to read body language, how to look at tone of voice and understand. So these things also, since I was very introverted, I didn't notice all this outside. And when I began to notice, I began learning. And I think schizophrenia accelerated the learning and took me away from, a very fractured view of the world. Does that help?
Yes, sure, sir.
Shloka, let me ask one question which is related to his writing of the book.
Yes, sure, sir.
And someone in the audience has asked it that you have already written 2 books, and do you think that they have taken your privacy? Means because now many people know about your journey, about books, so it has encroached your privacy. How will you reply to this?
Well, I think there is no personal question being asked here. That's the way I look at it. I mean, for example, if a person asks me, do I believe in God? I think that for each of us is so personal that I'll have to say I don't have a comment because my answer is not what any other another person's answers. So the nature of being invasive, perhaps I should say, the symptoms are more invasive than the questions I have today. So yes, yes, I think I am ready to cross that bridge. And when I have a question which I cannot answer and it's too personal, and I just say it's personal for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we continue. Huh?
Okay. So there are caregivers, students, and some of the participants here who might be suffering from the conditions. So, what suggestions would you like to give to the caregivers, participants, and also the students?
Sorry again. Could you repeat that?
Yes. So there are caregivers, students, and some of the participants who might be suffering from some conditions who are present here today. So,
Mhm.
what suggestions would you like to give to them?
Hmm. See, one thing I can say is that all wisdom is plagiarism. Only stupidity is original. Whatever has to be said, the, the wisdom, it's always already been said by a lot of people. And if you look and search out there, you'll find it. Uh, Early on, pre-internet, it was very difficult in India. I couldn't find anything. in libraries. They were not cross-referenced properly. Some books were not available. And what kicked off my learning was when I went to the US and I found their libraries very well equipped. So, and from that, now we've come to the internet, which is information across the world available at your fingertips in India. So, if you take care not to visit the dangerous sites and check the validity of the site and then garner information from it, we are in a much better position today. So, one of the books.
You hear the voice too?
Sorry, sir.
It's like when I'm reading, I can hear it.
Oh.
Put your speaker off.
So thank you. So yeah, one of the first books which helped me was a book called Triumph Over Fear, and that helped me handle a lot of the fears and phobias I had, and that was the seeding information, followed by a book by a primal therapist called Conrad Stedbacher. Conrad Stedbacher wrote the book Making Sense of Suffering. And he suggested writing out your history as an advocate of the person you were. So this also helped me a lot. And I think I would recommend it, caregivers, maybe care seekers also. If possible, start journaling. It's an incredibly therapeutic experience.
It was indeed an insightful interview. I once again thanks Ganesh sir. We will see Ganesh sir answering audience question in part 3. Thank you for watching.